Hello my dear sewing friends, and today on Made from Scraps we are going to be working with a lot a full bag of linen fabric scraps. We do have a lot of beautiful colors in here. Most of them are in these very nice earthy tones, but I do have my eye on these black linen scraps because they are sort of the biggest, the longest, also the most irregular, but I do think that if I place them together and patch them, I can actually end up with a really nice yardage for a pretty little girl's dress. And I do realize that black isn't necessarily the color that screams children's clothes, but I think I have a way around it and it might just turn out really cute. All right, we do have quite a bit of work on our hands. So first we're gonna start by sorting out these black linen scraps out of the pile because that's what we're going to work with first. And while I do that, I wanna tell you a little bit about where I got these fabric scraps from and what's the point of all of this? Now, this is not the first time that I have spoken about purchasing fabric scraps, and obviously in the Made from Scraps series, it feels very fitting. So in the past, I've introduced you to Thief and Bandit when I was making this cat t-shirt, all made from scraps. And then I also introduced you to Thunder Pants, and we made another t-shirt and plenty of other projects where I have featured the fabric scraps from them as well, and a couple of others, and most of them are slow fashion brands that sell the offcuts from whatever the clothes that they make in order to minimize their waste. But on our end, those people who sew, people like us, we're able to purchase fabric scraps for our creations. It's exactly the same thing with these particular linen scraps. If you're interested, I will leave all necessary information for you guys in a description, but you can of course Google and you will find that a lot of places do sell fabric scraps, and sometimes it's a really great way how to get very unique and very interesting fabrics. So I pressed all of them, and I'm not sure if this is going to work in our favor or not, but they're all of the same shape, this sort of like really odd triangular offcut. It would be kind of interesting to know what was the original garment that they were cutting, where this was sort of like the waist piece. But on one side we also have the selvage, which does make it a little bit easier in order to identify the grain, so that does work in our favor. I think that there's actually quite a bit, so the goal or the idea is to place them like this, because with this linen you can use both sides, they're both the same. So if I place them like this and sew them, we might get a nice amount of yardage. At first, I took all fabric scraps and then nested them in order to see if I can create continuous yardage. And I did that while keeping the grain of the fabric intact, meaning that all salvages remained parallel to each other. Alright, before we do anything, let's first take a look at the pattern that I want to use, because while this seems to work in order to create a continuous yardage, it might actually not be the best solution for the pattern itself, and there might be a different, better use of the fabric and how we put those fabric scraps together. I am making this dress for Project Dress a Girl, so if you're not familiar with that, I will leave a link for you guys in the description. You can check it out. I've been participating for 4 years now, I believe, and every year I used to do a free sewing pattern that goes along with it. But this time I wanted to try something different, so my choice landed on a free peasant dress pattern by Scattered Thoughts of a Crafty Mom. It is a multi-size pattern and it comes in 2 lengths, tunic and a full dress length as well. Now I do prefer to trace my patterns on the tracing paper, so that's what you're going to see throughout the video. Next, I played around with the placement of the fabric scraps and realized that if I arrange them like this, then I can get 2 panels, one for the front, one for the back, and they're going to be absolutely the same. Plus, the piecing seams are going to create beautiful radiating elements from the neckline, which is going to look quite intentional. With that, I started assembling the panels. Each seam was first sewn with a straight stitch on a sewing machine, then finished with a serger, and after that, top stitched. I realize it's kind of hard to see on black, so here I've added red lines, so hopefully it gives you a better idea of how it was pieced together. The middle red line is going to align with the center front and center back of the garment, so that's how I'm going to place the traced pattern piece and then outline it with a piece of chalk. However, I'm not going to cut it out just yet. Instead, I want to jazz it up and add to it a little bit of color. To do that, I'm going to grab another basket of fabric scraps. This time it's from Thunder Pants. These are all knit, a mix between cotton and spandex. I love using these for appliques, and I think that these bright colors are going to work out so well. At first, I started by cutting out freehand a couple of shapes until I finally had the crystallized vision of what am I going to do, and I landed on a very clean and simple design of flowers. To give my applique pieces a little bit of stability, plus to help them adhere to the main fabric as I stitch it all down, I'm using Wonder Under. Usually you would just fuse it to an entire piece of fabric and then cut out your shapes, but since I'm working with little scraps of fabric, I'm doing it kind of backwards, cutting out the shapes first, then placing them on a layer of Wonder Under, covering with tracing paper, and then fusing them. After that, I cut them out. Wonder Under has a paper backing on the other side. Once you remove it, you can then place your applique on top of your main fabric and fuse it with heat. Now I do realize that right now I'm working on a little girl's dress, I totally get it. But as always, I urge you, look beyond what you see. Grab the idea and then reimagine it in a way that suits you, fits your style, and sparks your own creativity, because I can definitely see something very similar, not quite obviously, but something similar on the adult woman's top as well. In fact, I did a tutorial quite some time ago on a peasant top, so I can see more intricate florals, maybe florals in the monochromatic color scheme, maybe florals that look more like geometric shapes, maybe geometric shape applique that runs like a border print on the bottom and on the sleeves, maybe around the neckline. So there's so many possibilities. I'm getting a lot of ideas as I talk to you about all of this, so maybe I'll put this on my to-do list because I think that this could really turn into something beautiful. Oh, hold on. I got so many ideas, I got excited, I forgot what I wanted to say. And what I wanted to say is that applique is a lot of fun. I've been playing around with it for quite a few years now, and there are a couple of tools that really help. And in this particular situation, Wonder Under interfacing, that's the one that you saw, it comes in a roll like this with a yellow label on the inside, so that is really, really helpful. You can of course use washable glue and some sort of other interfacings and whatnot. It just really depends on what you're working with, but I do find this quite universal for a lot of different fabrics. And then the thread. The thread is silky thread that is transparent thread. It's quite sturdy. It's heat resistant. It does remind you sort of like a fish line, but it's not. It's quite thin. And I love it because when you're working with a lot of different colors, like in this case, I don't have to constantly change out the thread. So I keep the transparent thread up top, and then in the bobbin, I stick to the color of the thread that matches the color of the background fabric on which I'm doing the applique, and that works out really well. Before we get to the stitching part though, I do have to attach my applique to the fabric. And here you can see how I'm removing that paper backing, placing my designs on top of the black linen, and then fusing it with hot iron. When everything is attached, now we can move on to the stitching part. Here I find that this stitch that I use does depend on a couple of factors. One of them is what kind of fabric I'm using for both the background, the main fabric, and the applique itself. So you can go as simple as a straight stitch, or you can choose something a little bit more fun. It also depends on what kind of design effect I want to achieve. So again, straight stitch will be very minimal, but a decorative stitch might add an interesting touch. And of course, don't forget the construction and the overall design of the garment itself. Today I decided to go with number 41 of my decorative stitches on my Bernat sewing machine. While I'm getting that done, I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you so much to all of you guys for watching, for being here, for sewing alongside with me. I truly appreciate you. That's what keeps this channel afloat. And big thank you to the members of the channel for all of your support. That is a big help in order to be able to make these videos for everybody. And if you ever need a sewing pick-me-up, I just wanted to remind everybody that there's over 500 videos available for everyone to see on the channel. So just click on the channel name, scroll through the videos, pick the one that looks good for you, and definitely give it a watch. And members of the channel, there's over 100 members only video as a part of your membership. So definitely check out your members perks and make the most out of them. And thank you so much for watching. After the entire applique was stitched, now it was time to cut out the pattern piece. And then as I was doing it, I was looking at it and my gut was telling me that in between the flowers, it was asking for some sort of filler, some sort of, you know, small design in a different color, perhaps yellow. And I looked through my fabric scraps and I didn't have any yellow, but I did have yellow iron-on vinyl scraps. So I took those and with my Cricut machine, I did cut out little bees. First, I went for the big bees, but then I realized that's a little bit too big. So you will see later on, the bees are actually much smaller. After that, I repeated all of the same steps on the front pattern piece as well. They're not exactly the same, but they're close enough. For the sleeves, I decided to do a much simpler design, just because the pattern pieces themselves are quite small, and then if the design is intricate, you wouldn't really be able to see much of it at all. Now, after the sleeves were done, all I had to do is put it together like any other peasant dress, which is really easy and really straightforward. And now let's take a look at the final result. About you, but I do think that it turned out quite fun, and I know that I definitely poured my heart and soul into it. Now the dress is also lined in the bodice only because while I was working with this linen, although the color is black, I could see a lot of light through it, and I just wanted to make sure that there's, you know, modesty in the dress. The dress also features 2 pockets. Now the original pattern doesn't have pockets in it, but of course you can add your own. Those can be patch pockets, those can be side seam pockets, and I do have a full tutorial for my favorite pocket of all times that is just amazing in any side seam. I will leave for you guys in the description. I also decided that the dress needs a belt, so from whatever was left, which wasn't a lot, I did piece the belt, and that's what you see on the dress right here. If you're after some more interesting and unique sewing projects, then click right over here to see this cat t-shirt. You won't believe how that cat came about, so definitely watch it. And if you want to see more about Project Dresser Girl, then click right over here. I think when people come together and share their love of sewing in order to help somebody, it definitely is a wonderful thing. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, happy sewing. Bye!